Flowmies. It's time for another edition of the ITF Flowcast, and we are so happy to be able to have Dan Platta with us. He's the CEO of Blue Sky Services, also runs a Facebook group, Bookkeeping, Beer, and BS, and he's just everywhere. If you have anything to do with window cleaning or the window cleaning industry, you know you've seen his name and face pop up all over the place. So Dan, we're really happy to have you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Gabriel. Good to be here. I love shooting the bull with business owners. So glad to get the opportunity to do more of it.
Absolutely. Well, we had several people say, I got to speak to Dan if we're going to have him on here and ask some questions about bookkeeping. So I'm looking forward to picking your brain on stuff as a business owner who's not so hot with his bookkeeping. I look forward to learning some things.
It does tend to be the thing that many of us set off to the side. It's not the sexy, shiny object for most people in the home service space. So
I made a meme for my Instagram, and it was this cat like stuck in this corner, and then the owner's like trying to pull him out, and it was like window cleaner, and it was like paperwork, and it's like, and the cat's like, and that's the way it is with me. Anything with paperwork, I hate. But first, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I mean, how'd you get going, and with accounting, and how did you transfer over to focusing on home services? I think I'm kind of interested on that.
Like many of us, totally by accident. I worked in the corporate world for about a decade, and I started like straight out of college, started in accounting. I like accounting, but I just hated it in the corporate world because you were just such a pencil pusher, and you were so isolated. You didn't get the broad spectrum of the business, right? You didn't get to actually make decisions. And that's like, the decisions are the fun part.
Yeah.
When we do bookkeeping today, we don't do it like so that you can report your taxes. We do it so you can make really good decisions. Decisions are how we make money in the home service space and in all businesses, but especially as CEOs of our businesses. So I did the corporate world thing for about a decade, but shortly after I started there in accounting, I realized I didn't get to make any decisions, and that sucked. So I went into what was called risk management. I was in a company called Cargill, which is a huge private agriculture company.
Okay.
So when I say risk management, it was basically a trading position. I was what I call slinging chicken feed. I was trading corn and soybean meal futures primarily, but also like developing some financial tools to help McDonald's hedge their sausage risk for their egg burrito, the breakfast.
Oh, no kidding.
And I will say, like, it's not like a claim to fame sort of thing, but that thing was $1 for a hell of a long time. And when I left and came into the small business world and whatever I was doing there, it was no longer $1 anymore. So I'm not saying I was the only one keeping it $1, but it sure is, correlation or causation, you decide. But now it's like $2 for those damn things.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
I just want you to go back and bring back the Big Mac, 2 Big Macs for $2. That's what I wanted from McDonald's.
Oh man, that's pretty soon.
I lived off of that.
At this rate of inflation, it's going to be like 2 Big Macs for $20.
Yeah, no kidding.
But what I really loved about that role, and I think it started to drive me towards the entrepreneurial itch that I have. In that role, one day I'd be at a farm in Iowa, meeting with farmers, talking about their price risk of buying ingredients. And I'm like walking around 6 million chickens that are all laying eggs, like just for McDonald's or just for Denny's or whatever the case was. And the next day I'd be in a corporate office in Chicago working with McDonald's Treasury Department. And the next day I'd be out on our plant floor, talking to our operations manager. So I just got the full spectrum of a business, and it's hard to find a role where you get to do that, especially in the corporate world. And the more I like advanced there, I realized like I just kind of got pigeonholed. And I was like, how do I get into a role where I just get to do everything? Like I don't want to have to do everything, but I want to get to do what I want to do and be able to like impact all the decisions. And when I started kind of realizing this shortcoming of the corporate world for me, at the same time, my financial advisor left Northwestern Mutual. He kind of had the cushy corporate job, and he said, I'm going to leave. I'm going to buy small businesses. I'm going to turn them around and sell them. And I was like, that's crazy. That's super cool, but it's crazy. And I'm not so risk seeking that was something I was going to do, but I was really interested. So I just kind of put the plug in his ear. I was like, hey, if there's ever a time you need help, like, let me know. I'll like moonlight for you. Maybe someday I'll like join if you've got a business that you need somebody to come in and operate. I might be the guy. Like, let's stay in touch. So he and I, and it helped that he and I lived like 2 miles away from one another.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
The first business that him and the other two partners bought, now I own part of this business. At the time I didn't. I was just, I was the fan club. They bought a background check and like tenant screening business. So that was the first investment they made. In a couple years, they turned it around and went from losing money to making money, and they sold it at a really nice turnaround, like profit return, however you want to look at that.
Uh-huh.
But it wasn't a sustainable business for the long term. Like, there were some opportunities to make it sustainable. They got an offer that they couldn't refuse, so they exited it. But that was what they set out to do, was, buy a business, turn around, sell it. So they were kind of fulfilling their mission at that point. Within that span, they bought a little shitty window cleaning business called Blue Skies. And clearly it didn't go too bad, because we're still here and we've like built on this thing. But at the time, it was doing $60,000 a year in revenue. It had 2 employees. I don't know how it made any money. It had 2 employees. Like, I don't know what. I still don't understand what their business model was at the time. And I also don't understand why the hell we bought it. Like, totally by accident. The rationale with why we bought it was, what's the worst that could happen? We soon after found out there was a lot more that could happen than we thought was the worst that could happen. But we bought it because it was just priced so cheap. It was kind of like, if we go clean a few windows, we're going to make some money. So let's go clean some windows. And at that time, I started to get more involved. And so Mike Dalkey, who's one of my partners in Blue Skies, he and I would go to Starbucks, meet up, talk about the business model, look at the financials. And we started designing the chart of accounts and getting really nerdy with how we measured stuff so that we could turn this thing around and get it profitable. We eventually got it profitable, found some marketing levers to pull. I say I did jack shit at this time. It was Mike and his team. But behind the scenes, I was kind of like helping him with the spreadsheets and with the chart of accounts and figuring out where we were going to make investments and what kind of return we needed on those. And so we went pretty big into radio advertising on 1 or 2 stations, and one hit and worked. And all of a sudden our business went from, 100,000 to 450,000 within like 2 years. And so we were like, oh, we got something here. So we took that, and then we bought another window cleaning company in Cincinnati. And then we bought another one out in Portland, Oregon, thinking like, hey, we have this business model. We were able to turn it around from a losing money company to something profitable and growing in Minneapolis. Let's see if we can replicate this. In hindsight, that was a really stupid ass idea. I don't know why we thought we were just going to go like replicate this in different locations.
Everything's the same. Yeah.
Different markets are so different. And managing an employee that you get to see every day versus managing somebody that's halfway across the country. So we hadn't figured that out at this point in time yet. We were still like working on the business model. One of the things that we got trapped with was all of these locations had quite a bit of seasonality. Minneapolis was shut down for 3 or 4 months in the winter. Cincinnati, a couple months, Portland, basically a couple months. And so we ended up with a big time cash flow crunch every winter. And so we said, how are we going to navigate this cash flow issue? And we said, well,
southern cities,
either southern cities. We looked at some southern cities, and we had started to figure out that if we didn't have a guy to send to a southern city, and we didn't have the right acquisition target that came with the guy, like the guy was the most important part. We were feeling some pain already from not having the right guy in some of our businesses. And so we said, well, maybe we can add on some interior cleaning where we're already on the outside of the house. If we're on the inside, we can clean all year. And if it's like a maid service style business, it's recurring revenue. And that would be really sexy to tack on with window cleaning, which is making us a nice, healthy profit. We didn't really know where to start. We didn't really know how to clean a house, and we had no experience running that style of business. We literally like cold called companies that were in the markets we were in and just said, hey, are you interested in selling? And some dumbass who's now one of my business partners today said, yeah, I'd be interested in selling. So Derek Christian in Cincinnati had a long track record in the maid service business. He had some other investments that were taking his time. He was doing some coaching. And he said, yeah, I'd be interested in selling. And I'll stick on board and do like some consulting with you guys. And I like your business model and what you're doing. And so, there's some opportunities here. So we bought his business in Cincinnati. He introduced us to another business in Cleveland that we bought. And the guy we bought that from is still involved, and he's actually our recruiting director now. And Derek is a partner of ours in Cincinnati. And Derek introduced us to another maid service company in St. Louis. And so we got some investors on board and bought that. We also started to like tack on home cleaning to our Minneapolis location and our Portland location. So all of a sudden now we had this like gauntlet of businesses. We still hadn't perfected the leadership model. And I think that was the biggest learning lesson of getting spread so thin is
right.
We could do it all again. We would have grown Minneapolis to 2 million first and then started doing these satellite locations. We pulled the trigger too soon and getting like spread way thin. And so Minneapolis like plateaued at $500,000 for a few years because it just never got attention. We were off spinning too many plates.
Wow.
So since then we've brought in more business partners because we need the guy, right? So we merged with a competitor of ours in Minneapolis, and now our business is back to growing like gangbusters. We brought Derek back into Cincinnati, and now he's able to manage that. We got rid of some of our businesses. We made an investment in Tampa that we sold. We sold the Portland entity. St. Louis, we found the right person to manage after like 3 different times of trying the wrong person.
Yeah.
And same with our Cleveland location. So we've learned a lot about the people side of the business, right? We can clean whatever the hell we want, but at the end of the day, our business is only as good as the people we have. It doesn't matter what our marketing is doing. It doesn't matter what type of equipment we're using. Really, we're in the people business. And so the more and more we've embraced that, the better our locations have done. And that all kind of takes me to what the hell we're here to talk about, which is a few years ago, we realized we had all these systems that we built. Really, like the bookkeeping side was something Mike and I started building way back in like 2011.
Okay.
And so as we bought these businesses, we had to have this like financial framework to plug them in and measure them to make sure that they were performing.
Right.
At the same time, we realized with our leadership model kind of broken of trying to get these locations to perform, we had to get really good at recruiting because our turnover was tremendous. And so Sean, who we had bought his home cleaning business in Cleveland, he was kind of tasked with running all of the home cleaning locations, but he also was tasked with recruiting for all of our locations.
Okay.
And so we kind of realized like we had to be the best in the world at recruiting because first and foremost, we just needed employees to go clean stuff. Our training sucked. Our leadership sucked at the time. My leadership sucked at the time. And so we had a lot of fixing to do. But at first it was like, well, let's just get good at hiring so we can at least like keep plugging the holes when people leave. Like there's better ways to have gone about that. But
I was like, that is so amazing that was your strategy, was just keep bringing people in.
It was like, until we can figure out how to keep them, I got to figure out, like how to get them.
Wow.
And so we ended up developing all these processes. And at one point, Mike had some other investments that he was doing outside of Blue Skies. And some of those other investments obviously needed employees and needed bookkeeping. And the more other investments he did, he was like, hey guys, like every investment that I'm going to make needs these things that we built within Blue Skies. And we have intentionally, but not for this purpose, we had built an admin entity within Blue Skies.
Wow.
So like each location would use the admin company for the bookkeeping, for the recruiting, for some sales and marketing stuff. And it was totally by like pull. Like we didn't push to any customers. Customers started coming to us saying, and at the time we didn't even know they were a customer, right? They were a buddy of ours that ran a business. And they'd be like, man, I cannot find employees. Like, how do you guys find them all? It's like, well, we built this system to do all these things because we kind of suck at leadership and management. It's like this is kind of what we're good at and what we're not good at. And so they're like, well, how can you hire like employees for me? And we're just like, I don't know. Like, I guess give me access to your Indeed account and your Facebook and your Craigslist, and we'll start getting you applications. And all of a sudden, like, I don't know what to do with 300 applications. And we're like, sorry, we don't like. We're just trying to help. We're just getting you application flow. And so we continued to like build out those processes. And same thing on the bookkeeping side. We figured out how to bring clients on board where we could manage the bookkeeping and the finances for them and really be like a CFO. We don't do the taxes. We just set them up to be able to make good decisions with their money. And at the end of the year, taxes are super easy because we got it all right throughout the year. So that's kind of how we got here today. Back in 2018, we really started taking on external clients. And so now we've got a few hundred we're not to 300 yet. We're somewhere between 200 and 300 bookkeeping clients, and then similar on the recruiting side, a couple hundred clients that we're helping in the home service space.
That's amazing. I love that story. I mean, that is so cool how the recruiting just kind of organically sprout out of just trying to survive, and now you got this thriving service especially right now with everyone struggling to find quality employees. I mean, you guys are just filling such an important niche right now, with that.
It's stressful out there. I mean, it's like your business literally can't survive without people. And so we've seen it over and over again. Like I've actually seen it on the bookkeeping side where we've lost bookkeeping clients because they decided to shut their doors because they couldn't find employees. And they just got so demoralized that they went out of business because that piece of their world sucked so much. So it's like, if you can't get that part right, it really sucks running a home service business.
Absolutely. Well, and especially, obviously we don't deal with this, but with the restaurant industry as well, we've had several in my town in Tucson, Arizona, several long time restaurants shut down just because they're like, we can't get people to serve. We can't get chefs. We can't get servers, and they just close. It's sad, or they eliminate locations.
Yep. It's amazing how many places are like very restricted hours, not open on certain days of the week or whatever the case is, and it kind of like it really makes you go, where did everybody go? Like, where are all the employees?
So what is your theory? Because I've read articles, I've talked to a million people, and everyone's got a different thing. What is your theory as to what's happening right now?
I mean, like it's a cocktail of things, right? It's never as easy as like, well, it's this one thing. Part of it is the older generations that are probably in their 50s and 60s, they just left the workforce, right? And we probably like discount that a little bit because our employees are oftentimes teenagers. And so we ignore that segment of the market. But in the restaurant space, that was a pretty big group of those servers. And they just kind of said like, I don't need this. I'm out. Right. For the, sorry, my phone's blowing up here as my business partner. Wonder if he's watching. But for the younger generations, I think a lot of them, especially in like the manual labor space, just kind of said, I don't know if I want to go do those dirty jobs, right? When everybody is hiring and I can go get any job that I want, what job do I really want? We lost our number 2 employee in one of our locations, and it wasn't a bad separation. It was very much like, hey, we know you really want to go do this thing. You've expressed to us that you really want to do this thing. We don't have a seat on our bus for that. She wanted to get into dentistry, and it's like, that's freaking awesome. Like, go get into dentistry, like go pursue your dreams. That's disgusting. I would never want to look in people's mouths, but like you're either cleaning toilets or looking in people's mouths, I guess, pick your dream job there. But so like we exited her, but I think that's a third segment, which is people that just said, what do I really want to do? I'm going to go into the education space, go get some knowledge while I can, while the government's paying me to do it, right? The government's paying us to stay home. So if there was a time I could afford to not be working 80 hours a week, it's right now. She went back to dental school and then she went into that space. And I guess the last thing would be more and more people are doing what we're doing right now, which is working from home. And that has a lot of sex appeal to it. Especially if you have kids and families. And right now, like shit, my kids have been home half the damn school year because it's like they either got sick or somebody else got sick, and all hell breaks loose and they're shutting stuff down. So I think there's a whole cocktail of those types of things that are causing people to not really be in the manual labor jobs, whether they're getting retrained or they're trying to get that job that's an office admin type of role working from home. Like we haven't had a hard time filling those types of jobs at all. And then you've got the older generation leaving and just exiting the workforce altogether. So a lot of things going on.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, because if the older ones are leaving, if they have that opportunity to either retire early or, like you said, just go, do something else, but they're spending time with their grandkids or whatever, that creates a vacuum. So that automatically sucks in a lot of the younger, speaking younger, 20 to 30 year olds who now are going to fill that. and then that takes away from the open pool of people who might be looking to go work somewhere. So,
and really, like, if you look at the population demographics, that like young boomer age had just more people in it. Our younger demographics there literally aren't as many of the younger people. And so when the older people leave, there's just not enough people to take their spots. So,
I can remember in school, in high school, this is back in the 90s, the early 90s, talking about that potential. Once the boomers went, once they started retiring, that it would leave a vacuum. Now that you just said that right now, I remember studying about that in economics, that they were already anticipating it back then, that it would create a hiring vacuum once they got to that age, and they just either couldn't or didn't want to. And I think the pandemic probably pushed that as well. Like you said, they're just like, nah, we're not dealing with all this stuff. We're just going to retire now or stay home or do something else.
Yep. And they can all get a job working part-time doing computer stuff from home. Yep. And it's just so easy to do nowadays, right? I keep telling people, like, when somebody's trying to hire an office manager, I'm just like, you can find somebody for 20 hours a week working from home, and they're going to be the best employee you've ever had. And they're going to be 65 years old and just trying to pick up a few hours a week, and they're going to be way overqualified, and they're fine with that. It's like that person's out there and pretty easy to find.
Awesome. Very good. Well, what can a small company do then to try and find, because you mentioned Indeed. That's how I hire. First I search around, I ask around the people I know, I respect, other business owners, not necessarily just window cleaning or cleaning industry, but just people who I respect, who I feel would have a good sense of character, but when that pool is dry, I usually go Indeed. What are some tips that you would give to a small company who's just looking to hire the one or maybe two people to get them through a busy season?
And there's three places to look, and this is just like marketing, right? If we flip around what we're so used to doing on the marketing side of our business, this isn't a whole lot different. The best source is always referrals. Always. They convert the best. And recruiting, we should be concerned about conversions too, right? When we think about our marketing, we're like, how many leads did we get in? How many turned into clients? When we think about our recruiting game, really, it's the same thing. It's like, how many applicants did we get in? How many did we turn into employees? We're going to get less applicants from referrals, but our conversion rate is going to be much higher. And we're going to be more confident because, Jim, who's like a stud, said that this is the guy. And so I think referrals are always the first place to look. And I'm not ashamed to admit, like, pay for those referrals, right? You're either going to have to spend a bunch of money on Indeed, or you're going to spend a bunch of money to the person that's already working for you. I'd way much rather pay them. So I think using your existing staff to leverage their network and be really intentional about it. We do what we call a social media minute. And I actually picked this up from a nonprofit board I was on, where when we were in meetings with our nonprofit board, we would have a social media minute, and we would all like share posts to our networks from their pages. And our employees can do the same for us. Like when we're in our weekly meeting, social media minute, let's all, like, our social media guy made this post for us about some cool stuff we're up to. Let's share it to our network and talk about how cool it is to work here. We're going to need to hire people. Our employees better like the people we hire. Like the first person that gets impacted by a shitty hire is the employees. So we just always tell our employees, like, hey, we need your help. And you're the first person that benefits from us finding good people, right? If we don't find good people, like, your life sucks. So help us find good people, and we will pay you to do so. So, like, let's leverage your network. So being active about finding referrals. The second would be boots on the ground stuff. And you can do this, and your employees can do it, but like handing out the business cards, going outside of your network, whether you're at a restaurant or at a gas station. We just picked up 2 people that worked at a gas station in our St. Louis location that are cleaning houses for us now. And generally, they just don't think of the home services space as a place that's going to pay really well, but we pay a lot better than a lot of manufacturing places or gas stations or retail or food service. And so we have a compelling job to offer that it's just not something that people are thinking about or searching for. So doing that boots on the ground stuff, whether it's us as the business owner, or again, just even incentivizing our employees to be out scouting and passing out business cards and finding people in the community that are maybe working a job that are, good at it, but are looking for something else, like, just cast as many nets as possible. So that's like the boots on the ground step 2 piece of the recruiting system. And I'd say the third is the digital recruiting stuff. So we use an applicant tracking system to try to harness all this. I'm not going to get into all the weeds on it because we'll be here for 3 hours. Yeah. But using an applicant tracking system generally allows you to post to a bunch of different job boards all at once. We use Career Plug and we use Hire Who. So we have 2 different ones that we use. And they do a couple things. One is they broadcast your post so that it goes to Indeed and goes to like 50 other job boards, ZipRecruiter, Monster.com, like a bunch of obscure ones that nobody will ever apply on. And that's totally okay, because it also then builds a bunch of content that Google likes. And Google for Jobs is super important. So you want to make sure your job is showing up on Google for Jobs. And one great way to make sure you're in there, you can't pay for it. It's not like Google Ads. You can't pay to be listed on Google for Jobs. They just need to see, it's like SEO, right? They need to see the right type of content that you're sharing and you're putting out there. And by posting jobs to a bunch of different places, Google sees that you have some authority and they'll list your job under, like when people search cleaning jobs near me or whatever the case is. So that's a super important piece of it. And then I would say, just like marketing, where we're going to have Google ads going, we're maybe going to have Facebook ads going, we're maybe going to be putting flyers out, X, Y, or Z, wherever you're spending marketing dollars, we can do the same on recruiting. The big 4 for us are Indeed, ZipRecruiter, Facebook, and Craigslist. And at any given point in time, we should be spending money on all 4 of those in all of our locations. Yeah. They change. Like the algorithms change really frequently. The keywords change really frequently. And so it's kind of like we want to be in all the places, because Craigslist will suck for like 3 or 4 months in a row. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like we get a few employees from it. And then Indeed goes south and gets really expensive for a short period of time. And everybody sucks that comes through there. And then all of a sudden we get some employees from it. So I think so much of it is just like making sure you've got enough lines out there that wherever people are searching around, you're in the game. Yeah. And the last piece of that I'd say is, don't be afraid to spend a bunch of money on it. The amount of money that our employees makes us is so much more than our customers make us, right? An employee makes us $100,000 to like $300,000 of revenue a year. Very few of our customers are paying us $100,000 to $300,000, like maybe a couple contracts if you're in that game, but our employee, but even that doesn't happen without an employee. Right. And for so many of us, our marketing budget is thousands and thousands and sometimes tens of thousands of dollars a month. And our recruiting budget is like $500 a month. Yeah. It's like, it just doesn't make any sense. The marketing budget doesn't do a shit if we don't have the people to go clean it. So in our business, we usually say like we have 15 to 20% that we'll spend between the two. And if we have all the employees, we'll spend 20% of our revenue on marketing and get really aggressive with growth. But especially in this market, most of the time, we're shifting a bunch of that budget to recruiting. In our Minneapolis window cleaning location, this last year, we were spending $5,000 a month on job ads. We were still spending $15,000 a month on marketing too. But like that $20,000 that we spent used to be $19,000 on marketing and $1,000 on recruiting ads. And this year it really flexed the other way. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to $10,000 to recruiting and $10,000 to marketing, because customers are so easy to find right now. The only thing that like disables your ability to go get them is not having the employees to sell, the work into. So
I love it. Thank you so much. That was a lot of really good information. So, and I was surprised when you said Craigslist. I've never had good success with Craigslist. I'm sure it's like an area thing, but I always seem to get like really bad quality candidates from Craigslist.
So in that applicant tracking system, part of the beauty of it is it like weeds out the shitty applicants, because they got to answer a few questions and they get a score. And so you just don't, if they suck, you just never even hear, you don't even see it. Okay. And Craigslist is super hit and miss. Part of it is, and again, I won't go into detail here. Sean Day, who's our recruiting director, has his blue collar recruiting Facebook group, and he goes into like some of the really specific gems of how to write an Indeed ad and why that needs to be different than the one you write for ZipRecruiter. And Craigslist is like totally different in the way it needs to look to get the clicks. And so it might just be you're not getting the right clicks because the ad's not formatted in the right way.
That's true. It's the same ad and everything for what we've done, so that makes sense if you need to word it a certain way for it to kind of get a different audience.
I want to say in Indeed, keywords need to be at the top, and you got to know what keywords people are clicking on. One of the things we find is really interesting is like in Minneapolis, like posting a job with window cleaner in the title rarely gets clicked, But if we post a job with general labor in the title, that gets clicked like crazy because that's what people are searching for. And it doesn't matter what we're trying to sell. It just matters what they're trying to buy. We want to intercept them when they're searching for a warehouse job. We want them to click on our job because they haven't even thought about cleaning windows or pressure washing. So we're not posting a job description of here's our window cleaner position. It's like, if you like working with your hands and don't mind being outside and you think you might like working in a warehouse or a restaurant, like we start listing all the things they might be searching for right up at the top in the keywords so that when they search, our ad shows up, even though they're searching for working in a restaurant. Craigslist is the opposite. I think all the keywords go down in the bottom and like the way you list them doesn't need to be in a sentence. You can just like smash them in with commas or something like that. Again, I'll defer if people want to know more about that. Jump on the Blue Collar Recruiting Facebook page because Sean's always dropping cool content about how to do all the Boolean tags or whatever it is and Indeed ads to get them to show up. I'm like making up words now because he's clearly there's a lot behind the scenes that I take for granted because he's just a mess with it.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Well, I appreciate all of that on the recruiting side, but now I really want to focus on the bookkeeping side because
the real sexy stuff.
Well, it is, because I talk to I interview a lot of business owners and I've had several points specifically to your programs it was what helped them kind of streamline, get profitable, kind of take a good business in the sense that it had good reputation, it was good quality, good workers, but then turn it into where it's actually growing and making a profit. So talk a little bit about what you offer as services and why that's important for even small businesses like ours.
Yeah. So I like to start by differentiating the accounting processes that we all have within our businesses. We have them whether we like it or not, and we usually mix them up or don't define them properly. So there's 3 different accounting things that happen in your business. All of them need to get done. One is what I like to call the mother-in-law work. And I say that in a very like genuine sort of way. Like seriously, the person I was working with, I talked earlier before we jumped on about we're trying to solve this payroll thing. And it's literally my business partner's mother-in-law that's working on this. Like she is our payroll person. So mother-in-law work is the accounting that doesn't actually require an accountant. She's not an accountant, but she is 10 times better than me or anybody else on our team at following processes like accounts payable, accounts receivable, and payroll. There's no accounting work that's like traditional accounting that needs to get done. You don't need any accounting education to pay an invoice, to collect an invoice, or to punch information into a payroll system. We don't use our CPA to do payroll because Gusto is out there to punch your stuff in and they handle all the payroll taxes and stuff like that. So you don't need an accountant to be doing your payroll stuff. Use Gusto. There's a few others out there. We're a Gusto partner program. So if you need payroll service, let me know and I'll hook you up with our Gusto link so you can save some money. But like those types of things don't need an accounting person. They just need an office person that's super reliable, super consistent, always on time. We don't do that in our business. We actually like tried to help some companies with that. And we were like, we're just like way too expensive. It doesn't make sense for you to pay us to do something that you can do way better internally. Like let us find one of those 10 to 20 hour a week people that are sitting at home that want to be remote and just work on their computer. That's the person you want to hire for 15 to 20 bucks an hour instead of us. So we don't do that stuff. The other end of the spectrum that needs to get done, and we also don't do, is all the tax stuff. You need to have a CPA in your corner, a tax professional that can just protect you, right? It's a risk aversion thing. Make sure the taxes are getting done correctly on time by somebody that knows what they're doing and is a good communicator. We got to pay sales taxes for a few of our locations too. And yeah, we could probably figure out how to submit that information, but if it's tax related, we delegate it all to them besides the payroll stuff. The payroll taxes all get taken care of by Gusto. We delegate everything else to our CPA. We could figure it out, but like, I'm not here to be a tax expert and those tax laws are going to keep changing. And I want them to be on top of it. Right. The spot that gets overlooked is what's in between there, which is all of the financials that we need to run our businesses and make decisions with. A lot of times people are going to hire their CPA to do their bookkeeping, and a CPA does bookkeeping for tax purposes. And there's nothing wrong with that if you don't plan on like using financial metrics at all. But a CPA is generally going to do bookkeeping maybe like once a month or once a quarter. and they're going to organize it in a way that jives with their tax system, where how they enter stuff into their portal to pay your taxes. They're not going to organize stuff in a way that helps you understand what's going on in your business. So the niche that we fill is bookkeeping done for business owners as finance people. So yeah, we're accountants, but we're not doing bookkeeping so that your CPA loves us. Most of them do, because they're like, holy shit, I literally just yesterday, January 3rd, I have all of our books done and reconciled for all of our entities. Because there's like nothing to do. If you do your books right all year, there's like literally you click a button and you're done. And so that process, we realized everybody else needed too, because it sucks when it's like March 15th, you're like, oh shit, taxes. I haven't even looked at my books all year. And so we do bookkeeping, a few like highlights of it. We do it weekly because we want to have as relevant of information as possible. And the sooner we have the data, the better, especially like cost of goods sold. We want to know how much it's costing us to go out and produce in the field. And we want our operations people to know how they're performing. So we're sending cost of goods sold updates to our team every single week. And we can do that because we're doing our bookkeeping every single week. So we do the same for our clients. We get their books done every single week, so they have updated information. They can see especially what their cost of goods sold is every single week and make sure they're producing at the profit margins they want to produce. The next thing we do is obviously we reconcile at the end of the month, and then we send our clients a report that breaks down their books into 5 groupings. Instead of like 40 lines of expenses, where if you look at a full-blown profit and loss statement, and I'm going to do the same thing. Like, I'm not saying anybody's better or worse than me. I love finances, but if you send me a full-blown profit and loss statement, I'm going to look at the top line and I'm going to look at the bottom line. And then if like those two numbers look all right, like I'm just moving on. Right. There's just too much noise in between. Right. And so when we do the books, we organize it into 5 different groups of expenses that are going to be based on how we make decisions as business owners. It's literally going to be the types of decisions we make and who we can hold accountable to make sure that we're running our business within the business model. And the percentages of like how much of the revenue you should spend on those different subsections varies from industry to industry. A lot of it's similar, but window cleaning is a little different than pressure washing, and lawn care and landscaping are way different than paver sealing or garage floor coatings. So 5 groupings of expenses. The first one that we all kind of talk about or hear a lot about is cost of goods sold, which is how much is it costing you to go produce X job? Not all of your infrastructure costs, not all of your marketing costs, just literally when you send people out to do a job, how much does it cost? What's the money that's left is called your gross profit. The percentage would be the gross profit margin. So we always want to have that dialed in. We want to know when we go out to do a job for our business, for our window cleaning companies, we want to make 55% of that money. So if it's $1,000 job, we need to make $550 when we go out to do that. So our COGS has to be 45% or below. So that's going to be like the labor, the supplies, the tools and equipment, the gas to get out there, even the merchant processing, because we expect to get paid when we go and do a job. That's like important to us. Damages and repairs. What else am I missing? Workers' comp insurance we put in there because obviously safety is a big part of what we do. And all of those things we're going to hold our production manager accountable to. They oversee all the people in the field and they oversee the routing to make sure the schedule's done right so that we can do it as efficiently as possible. We don't want, if there's 2 jobs right next to each other, we don't want somebody doing one of the jobs and driving across town and then another guy driving and picking off the job across the street, right? That's wasting gas, that's wasting time. We can't be productive doing that. Our production manager is responsible for all of that stuff. So we use cost of goods sold as like how we manage productivity, and we hold our production manager accountable for that. The next obvious one is marketing. We got to have our marketing dialed in. And when we look at our client acquisition cost, we don't just look at the ads that we spend money on. We also look at how much we're paying to the person that's running the ads. How much are we paying for the website and the software infrastructure like Responsibid or any other stuff that you use that makes it easy for leads to come in and find you? SEO type of labor, whatever the case is. We look at the ad spend to be able to compare this radio station versus that TV station, or Facebook versus Google. We want to know from an ad spend perspective roughly that's costing us. But a lot of marketing is not counterproductive, like co-productive. When we market on the radio, our Google ads perform really well. Like, go figure, because people are just searching for us and clicking on our stuff, right? And our Facebook ads perform a lot better when we're marketing on the radio, because people are thinking like, oh yeah, I've heard of them before, right? And so we also just want to measure what's our total acquisition cost. How's the performance of the whole thing? So marketing is really important to just like isolate that line item. And we don't worry as much about how much we budgeted for marketing. We really worry about how is that group of costs performing? Is it bringing in enough leads, and are we converting those leads at the pace we want? So transitioning from that, when we convert a lead, it's not as much based on our marketing usually as it is the person that they talk to first at our company, right? We have customer service people, we have sales people. They all fall in the admin bucket. So that's category number 3, kind of our people infrastructure. If marketing is getting the leads in, admin is converting the leads and like nurturing them and taking care of them after the fact, and, you know, collecting the payment, stuff like that. So admin infrastructure is kind of our people not out in the field, I'll say. The last 2 little buckets, they're little in terms of percentage, but they're huge in terms of how often I see people screw them up and throw money down the drain like crazy and end up not being profitable. The first is our fixed overhead. And by fixed overhead, I mean like our non-people infrastructure, stuff like utilities, rent, liability insurance, software dues and subscriptions, interest expenses on debt that we have, all of the stuff that's proactive and predetermined, where if you do twice as much work next month or half as much work next month, those bills are generally going to stay the same. Yeah. And so people oftentimes pile on way too much infrastructure way too fast. And the important thing to realize, our customers don't give a shit. They don't care what software we're using. They don't care what they might make sure we have liability insurance, but they're not like, who's your insurance provider? They don't care what building we're renting because they're not showing up there. Now, if you're out, not working from your house, if you've got a location, yeah, that's nice. And there's some employee engagement benefits from having that location and just not having people stopping at your house every day. But like, you really got to be careful because your customers don't care. You can't charge them more because you went and rented a shop. That's just pure money out of your pocket. So those infrastructure costs, we try to keep at 5% of revenue, and really like, that's hard to do, but super important to keep that infrastructure low. The last one is our variable overhead. And it's kind of all like the non-recurring, non-fixed pieces of our infrastructure. We talked a lot about recruiting. Our recruiting goes under variable. The more work we do, the more people we need. And variable meaning generally the more that we do, the more those costs go up. Travel, meals and entertainment, employee engagement stuff, repairs and maintenance is a big one that falls in there, because the more work you do, the more shit you're going to have to fix naturally. And so we have a percent that we want to manage to in all of those buckets. And so when we look at a P&L, it's really easy to tell what we're winning with and what we're losing with. If we just look at 5 line items, we can really quickly tell. And this is exactly what's happening in my business in Minneapolis. Cost of goods sold, we're at like 43%. We want to be at 45 or lower. We're at 43. No problems to solve. That's like a huge piece of our business. And if I can just say like, we're good, I don't need to think about how we're paying people. I don't need to think about how we're buying supplies. I have no problems to solve there. So I'm just not going to solve any. We're exactly where we need to be. And we're really consistent, and our business model is dialed in. Our admin, however, is like 18%. We really got to think about how to get our admin team more efficient. Are we paying people too much? Is our salesperson not closing high enough? Are we not efficient in how we're routing them? Or what's our general manager doing? And how can we get them to be more productive? Same with our fixed infrastructure. We have way too much software. Can we get on different subscriptions? Do we really need that software? Our variable's not bad. It's a little high because we spent a shit ton of money on recruiting, but we kind of said, cool, because our marketing is a little bit low. Like I talked about earlier, we're kind of using those interchangeably. But so I don't have to look at my P&L and try to like figure out which problems I need to solve. I know we have a people infrastructure problem and we have a fixed infrastructure problem that we just have like too many software bills. And so now I can get to work on solving those things, but I know exactly what my problems are, and I don't need to stress about why we're not making money here. Where's our money going, and why is our profitability not where it wants to be? And so the whole point of that is to say, we're not doing bookkeeping. And this is what we're doing for ourselves, but we're doing it for all of our other clients too. We're not doing bookkeeping so that right now they can pay their taxes. That's just like a bonus that within the next 6 days, all of our clients will have their books done. The real benefit is that when they look at those reports, they know exactly what they need to focus on for 2022 to go make more money.
Nice. Well, I mean, I think that's for us, for small business owners, especially, and like you mentioned, we're not we don't think financially, we think work, right? We know how to use a squeegee, we know how to get a job, we know how to talk to the customer. So to have those numbers, and I'm sure it's probably in a little chart or something, where it breaks down each thing in front of us, that in something that's understandable. And like you said, now what areas you actually need to worry, because like with me, you just have kind of a general anxiety about every, the whole thing that has to be with money. Now you can be specific. And when you make it specific, now you can actually direct your energy in a positive way to deal with it. So that's awesome.
Now you don't have to lose sleep about 40 things. You just have two things.
Two things. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, Dan, we're just about out of time. I really appreciate how generous you were to take time out of your busy schedule to talk with us, but that gives us a lot of things to chew on and to see where we can adjust. And anybody you need some help with bookkeeping or recruiting, please give Dan a call there at Blue Sky Services, and they're going to be able to hook you up and help you out with whatever you need. But again, thanks so much. Anything else you want to say before we close up shop here?
If you need help on the recruiting side or the bookkeeping side, or you just want to our big thing, Gabriel, is we really want to teach people. We can teach them how to do the bookkeeping. We can teach them how to do the recruiting. And if they don't want to do it themselves, they can kind of outsource the labor end to us. And hopefully we can, dish on some expertise with that. But check out our Facebook pages, Bookkeeping, Beer and BS, and Blue Collar Recruiting groups. We have those same groups out on YouTube, and we cut up some of the content a little differently. So check that stuff out.
Yeah.
And we have a bunch of free resources on our website, like target budget sheets that literally build your budget for whatever industry you're in for 2022. We've got recruiting resources out there. Our admin website is yourblueskies.com. So you can go check that out. And if you're interested in anything that we're doing, fill out our contact form there and get in touch, and we'll have a conversation and see how we can help you out.
And also, Flowmies, get on YouTube and just search his name, because he's always on other people's podcasts. He's given some really good interviews. I really enjoyed the one you had on budget, when the Nice Job podcast that you had recently. That was really helpful. So any resources that you just search his name, and you're going to find some subject that's going to help your business.
I'm borderline annoying. Yeah, if you search my name, I'm just going to
not at all, man. I love it. You're great.
Sleep about that.
All right, buddy. Well, thanks so much, Dan, and thank you, Flowmies, for listening in. We know you're going to enjoy follow through on some of the stuff that's in here. That way you can help your business. But thanks again for listening, and as always, flow on.